Hey, what's going on, guys? Thank you so much for tuning in to yet another episode of the Sports Muse podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Brumley. I'm telling you guys right now, make sure right now that you click the like and the subscribe button, or else I'm going to have Kenny Monday come to your house and beat you up. It's not my words, it's his. Okay? So I'm going to give you a second. Okay. So, since you already clicked like and subscribe, check us out on social media at _sports_muse. That is on Instagram and Twitter. And I just started a Facebook page too, but I don't really know how to use Facebook. So, we'll see. My guest today needs no introduction. Okay. I can talk for 10 minutes just about the things this man has accomplished. You're talking about one of the greatest wrestlers ever, okay? You're talking about the 1988 Olympic gold medalist, 91 Pan Am champion, 92 Olympic silver medalist. I am talking about Kenny Monday. So let's get right to it. All right, guys, like I said, I have Kenny Monday on the show. Kenny, how are you?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing great. Doing great. Where'd you get that Foxcatcher jersey at? I just noticed that.
Yeah, so I bought this a while ago. I just kind of didn't know where to find it, and then I ended up finding it like a random place online, and underneath it, rep the OK State. I got a Johnny Hendricks shirt on.
Gotcha.
Go
beard.
So I came ready for the interview.
Repping. All right.
I said this in the intro, but this is a man who needs absolutely no introduction. You're talking about the 1988 Olympic gold medalist, 91 Pan Am champion, 92 Olympic silver medalist, head coach of UNC, National Wrestling Hall of Famer. I can go on and on, man. Like, just an absolute legend of the sport. So again, I do appreciate you coming on.
Yeah. It's a great time. Great time to be a wrestler. Great time to be a wrestling coach. I'm loving the talent pool that we have wrestling right now, from kids to high school to college to internationally. So it's really a great time to be a wrestler right now, for sure. Be a part of the game.
Absolutely. Let's start here. Is how hard was it, like, when the whole pandemic hit? How was that for, like, as far as you as a coach? Like, your wrestling team was still working at the time, and what was that like?
It was it was devastating, like it was for anybody. We're on our way to the NCAA tournament. Of course, I've got two sons wrestling, and both qualified for the NCAAs, and was having a good season. Quincy's at Princeton, 157-pounder, and Kennedy's at UNC, 165-pounder, and they were both excited. Of course, as you go through the sport, I went through 4 NCAA tournaments, and just an incredible experience. That's their dream to wrestle in college and at a D1 school, and so to have that taken from them was heartbreaking. And I felt bad for them, and we did a lot of work to get them through it, and once they kind of accepted it and saw that it wasn't happening, then they kind of had to move on to the next phase. But it was tough, man. It was tough for our team, UNC. Our guys that were really ready to compete, having a good season. We ranked in the top 10. Austin O'Connor was, second seed. We had a really good team coming in with some good draws, and so felt bad for those guys. Just brokenhearted for those guys to not be able to compete and live out their dreams. So it was tough. Yeah, it was tough as the coaches as well, and everyone involved, parents, and so it was a tough time. It was a tough time for even people that wrestled for other schools that I knew of, and it was just tough all the way around. And then, of course, on top of that, we missed out on the Olympic trials, and of course, I'm training Jordan Oliver, and Jordan was. He was wrestling and working on all cylinders. He was getting better every single day. His attitude, his mentality. I've been around the kid since he's a sophomore in college, and I have never seen him this focused. So it was that was heartbreaking as well.
And I think that's like, I feel bad for a lot of the sports, but wrestling's like so hard because like you have such a finite window of, Olympics only come every 4 years.
Right.
It's
Right.
just it's so like it's just I feel so bad for those athletes. It's
Right.
like they're just, what are you supposed to do?
Yeah. Yeah. You just kind of, you help them get through it, just like anything else. Just like, just like having an injury, and not being able to compete, or, having something like that happen. You just kind of, you have to, have do some soul searching, and find ways to look on to the next chapter and get past it, and know that it was something that was out of our control. So we couldn't, we had to focus on what we could control, and so it's just trying to get to the next phase and what's up next, and so just trying to, at that point, just trying to keep everyone safe, and do the right thing, listen and stay home, and so it was a tough one. And of course, when you've gone through the sport, and I've been on every level of the sport, uh, so you kind of see all angles. You see, from the guys that are trying to make the Olympic team and have Olympic dreams, to NCAA's, to state. Luckily the guys in high school got through their state tournaments, and so that was,
Yeah.
they didn't get to lose that, and so I was happy for those guys. But other than that, man, it was a tough time.
Yeah, for all college sports, it was just like that peak time that
Oh,
you're
yeah,
working
yeah,
for.
absolutely. I'm a big sports guy, man. I grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and grew up with John Starks, played for the Knicks, and Raymond Tisdale. And, I had a lot of, Tulsa is just such a great sports town, man. And
Oh,
so, and I grew up playing all sports, football and baseball. And so I'm a big sports junkie. I watch all the NBA games, and I'm a big Laker fan. And so I was ready to pull for my Lakers, and, yeah, yeah. And so I was excited about that, and so to miss out on that, and it was a tough one. It was a tough one, man, for sure.
And you know what? Something that I'm just kind of curious. I didn't plan on asking this, but I'm curious for your opinion. Is I know around Waynesburg, where I'm from. It's
Yeah.
also where AC Headley on your wrestling team, and
Yep.
Coleman Scott,
Yep.
which is one of your coaches.
Yep.
Um, but you see a lot of wrestlers more than I feel like other sports individualize their spectrum, where they're kind of they're focusing on wrestling. As a coach for recruiting purposes, do you look for athletes who do multiple sports, or does that really matter? Or I mean, as a father, do you try to encourage kids to do as much as they can at this age?
Yeah, absolutely. I did it. I did when I grew up, and it was just a great way to, just to see other sports and meet other kids, and have other experiences. And I think you look for athleticism, of course. The guys that are more athletic, and can do more things, you can do more things with them. They're a little easier to coach. They have a little more range with their athleticism. And so that's big. I don't think it's a requirement. I think the way that the sports is moving now, I think parents are, they're being more specialized, because they're getting one-on-one instruction. When I grew up, you wasn't getting that type of one-on-one tutorage. You do it in the classroom, math or
Yeah.
English or something, but not in pitching. And
Sure.
I see guys that are growing up, and they got football, they got quarterback coaches, they got hitting coaches, and so now wrestling has really evolved, of course, with the growth of the club programs, on a kid level. So now, parents are specializing and getting kids one-on-one. I get calls all the time for just specialized training, and so that wasn't happening when I was growing up. It really wasn't doing it where it was a business. Guys can now run a club and make a living.
Yeah.
It wasn't available when I was growing up. Okay? I remember when I first started trying to run a club back after I finished in 1997, and I was running the club, and it had kids, paying for the club, and parents were like, man, I can't believe Kenny Monday's trying to make money off the sport. So it just wasn't happening like that, right? I think Monaco was doing a good job up in with the Edge in New York, but you just didn't see a lot of the club programs. So now it's like it's on it's everywhere. And so it's really grown. I think that's really revolutionized our sport today. It's made it grow.
And I'm all for like we for Waynesburg we just had a state winner, Wyatt Henson, and he won a
Yeah.
state title in Missouri, won
Yep.
one
Yep.
DA, and he's actually going to Iowa.
Yep.
Like somebody like him, he played football when he was younger, but now he's individualized, and I'm all for it, man. You got your meal ticket. He's got a free education at the next level.
Right.
I'm all for it.
Right.
It's the kids that are good at wrestling, they're successful, or this is any sport, and it's just like you're holding out hopes to try to get like a D1 or even get like a high level D2 scholarship, and I'm just like, you're a teenager once, and I don't want kids to look back and be like, man, I wish I would have played baseball or track.
Right. Right.
You know?
No, I get that. I get that. You know, of course, my sons, you know, they played football and wrestled. They never played baseball. It was so funny. I was in the store maybe a couple months back with Quincy, and we may have been at a sporting goods store, and I picked up a glove, a baseball glove. I said, hey, pick that glove up. And so we were like playing catch in the store. I'm like, we have really not done this. You know, it was like, you know, we did that for like 15 minutes. It was crazy. But he never played baseball, you know, just like, because after wrestling, there was like, man, I need a break. You know, I need a break. They really didn't want to start going to another practice session. And, you know, it can be overwhelming a little bit when you're going sport to sport to sport to sport, right? And so they kind of missed out on that. And, you know, I look back on, like, because I played baseball a little bit. I played up until they started throwing curveballs. They started throwing curveballs. I was like, you know, I think I'm going to stick to wrestling. But it was great. I played all the way up until the 7th grade, you know, until they started, you know, specialized pitchers.
No, I definitely agree.
I agree. Huh?
I said I definitely agree with you on that. Like I think
Right.
I think you're right. Let's take it back all the way to when you were finishing up your senior year at Tulsa for high school. What made you choose Oklahoma State?
Well, you know, it was probably a couple different reasons. You know, growing up in Oklahoma, they had great teams. Oklahoma State University had great teams under Mine Roderick. OU, University of Oklahoma, had great teams. They had guys that came out of Tulsa, Kilgore and David Kilgore, and it was just some guys that I grew up watching. You know, I was always a student of the game growing up, and so I watched these guys that were really good. And to watch those guys go to college. And so I kept my eyes on them. So I would always kind of go back. I was a OU football fan, of course, growing up. And so, but I would always go back and forth from OU to OSU, OSU, kind of whatever team was doing the best. I think Oklahoma State won a national title in 1971. And I was like 9. And I think OU came around. And I think the last time they won a national title, it was 1974. Right. And so, and of course, I was all about it. You know, I was all pulling for those.
There you go.
You got me?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Now you're
and so I'm pulling for both teams. And so really when it came down to it, it was a tough decision. It was probably one of the toughest decisions of my life. As a kid, I was going down to Oklahoma State because that's where the U.S. Open used to be in Stillwater. Federation, and they had it in Stillwater every year, and so I was comfortable going into Stillwater. There was a lot of great experiences I had going to watch the Federation. I watched the 1972 team. I watched Dan Gable and Wayne Wells, which is a University of Oklahoma guy, Chris Taylor. That 72 team was probably my biggest inspiration growing up. You know, as I was 10 years old when they came around, and I'd already been wrestling for 4 or 5 years, started kind of get good at the sport. And by then I was a lifer. You know, I loved the game and I was going to stay around for a while. So now the 72 Olympics came around and I was like, wow, I was blown away by, you know, just the success of that team. And then getting the chance to watch them, you know, I was exposed to greatness early. You know, early on, I watched Jimmy Carr of that team, you know, make the team, and Rick Sanders. And so I was just blown away with that. And so Stillwater was I kind of had a love for going to Stillwater because it was like an hour from Tulsa and I could get there quickly, you know. And so that was kind of a part of it. And then when it came down to it, Leroy Smith had just graduated at 142. And coming out of high school as a freshman, I wanted to wrestle right away. I really didn't want to redshirt, and I never did redshirt. And OU, they had Andre Mesker was a starting 142 pounder, in which he actually won NCAAs that year. Roger Frizzell was in 150. OU was kind of, and then they were kind of, and then Schultz were there. The Schultz brothers were there. And then my brothers were actually there too. But so they kind of wanted me to either red shirt or go 134 for my freshman year. And I just I couldn't go 34. I was too big. Actually kind of too big for 42. But I ended up, and then so Oklahoma State had an opening at 142 because Leroy had just graduated. And so that kind of played into it because I could go right in and start. I could beat anyone else who was there, like the guys that were trying to make the lineup. I could beat those guys at Oklahoma State. So it was kind of an open shot to come in at Oklahoma State to wrestle right away.
Sure.
And then also, I love Tom Chesbro. Chesbro was the head coach then, and I'd watched him over the years. And Myron Roderick was athletic director there, and he used to be the coach there, so I kind of knew him. And then Dave Martin was the assistant coach. And so I had another guy from my high school at Oklahoma State too, Thomas Landrum. And so it just kind of came down where it just kind of worked out, and I could come in and start right away. So
and it worked out well for you, You end up winning a national championship, so, there you go.
No, it worked out. I think it worked out at OU, too. I think it would have worked out if I'd went to OU.
Sure.
Again, I could have went anywhere and made it work,
It's true.
It just so happened. I knew I wasn't leaving the state. That was the one thing. And people asked me, why'd you go? And I remember I meeting Dan Gable one time at the national tournament. I think I was a junior or senior. He's there, and he saw me, and he goes, "Hey, your name Kenny Monday?" I said, "Yeah, Kenny." He said, "Have you ever thought about coming to Iowa?" And I like, "Nah, coach, I love you, much respect, but man, I want to beat you guys. I want to wrestle against Iowa, because I had wrestled a couple all-star teams at Oklahoma, and we go to Iowa and wrestle against Oklahoma and Iowa, so we had a little rivalry going there anyway. So I want to beat you guys. I can respect that." And he said, "I'll just get someone to beat you." All right, coach.
All right. I like that.
Yeah.
So let's fast forward to the '88 Olympics. Paint the picture for me of, to qualify for the Olympics, you have to wrestle off against Dave Schultz, who was the '84 gold medalist for your weight class. Paint that picture for me.
That's a big picture. that's a big, gigantic picture, because it really, I graduated in 1984, and so I tried to make the Olympic team. I went to Olympic trials in '84 when Dave made the team, and Lee Kipp was there, and Lee Kipp was kind of the guy before Dave kind of surpassed him. And so I got fifth at the Olympic trials in 1984. Lost to Mike Deanna, and that was in the quarterfinals. He had Lee Kipp in the semifinals. So I never got to wrestle Lee Kipp, which I'm kind of hurt up about that. I never got to wrestle against him. But then Lee Kipp beat Deanna, and then Schultz beat Lee Kipp in the final trial, in the final match. So after that, then I knew I just wasn't quite ready. I was right out of college and just wasn't ready. I knew Schultz was the guy. He was the guy that I was targeting. Lee Kipp had retired. So that next year, 1985, I took a job at Arizona State with Bobby. So I moved out of Stillwater, went to Arizona State for a couple of years. I won the U.S. Open in 1985 and beat Deanna in the finals. I think that was his last match ever. So I got some revenge on him. But Schultz wasn't in the weight class. He had wrestled 180 that year, and he wanted 180. So, then that next year, I wrestled him at the U.S. Open. I think that might have been the first time I wrestled him. And he beat me in the finals in 1986, and then beat me again in 1987. But, I was getting better every year. I was getting better. I was kind of closing that gap. But it wasn't until 87 that 87 World Team Trials, Nate Carr, of course, was in the weight class. And I think the last time I wrestled Nate Carr was in the 1987 World Team Trials. I beat him 2 straight matches, beat him 5-1, and I beat him 8-0. So I kind of passed Nate at that point. And then I beat Dave for the first time at the World Team Trials in 1987. He beat me the first one. I beat him the second one. He beat me the third one. So I knew I was getting closer. But it wasn't until I went to Russia. I went to the Tbilisi tournament in 1987. I got fifth. Dave won it that year. that next year, I said, man, I got to go back. And I knew that was the key. That tour was amazing. It was an amazing tour because it was a tough. You wrestle because we go 3 dual meets, and then a tournament. So you go, maybe, 10, 12 matches, that tour. So the next year I went back. And so the next year I won it. And Dave didn't wrestle. He decided just not to wrestle. He wanted to just go as a coach. And so he was on the tour, but he didn't wrestle. And I was undefeated on the tour. I won all my dual meets. And then I won 8 straight matches in the tournament. So I was like 12-0 on that tour. So after that, that was when I came back. I thought, man, I can win. I can beat everybody in the world, So I was really my jump from 87 to 88 was it was amazing. It was an amazing jump. But I think I figured it out how to get better on a daily basis, as far as training and what to train for, what to do, how to train. I knew my conditioning. I couldn't get tired. And so I really made some big strides from 87 to 88. And then that next year, once I kind of got through Russia and I won that, I got OW, I really thought I could beat Dave. I had confidence, and I was training. I was doing the right things. I had a great system at Oklahoma State. And then, of course, John was there training, and so we really had a great training situation with Oklahoma State. We had a great team. Of course, we won 89, 90 as a team there. And so we were just doing the right things. I think we were really outworking everybody in the world at that point. And watching John develop was kind of an amazing thing as well. We was kind of just feeding off each other. And Mike Sheets was my workout partner. So we were just really doing all the right things. And so when it came down to it, man, I really just felt good. I felt confident. I felt like I beat him. I felt I had passed him, and I dominated in the final trials.
Yeah, and in a way, that's almost that's on. I'm sure that's about the same level as winning the gold. That you're my biggest obstacle to taking the next step in my journey to chase my dream. I
Right.
just did it. You know what I mean? And like you said, you beat him in dominant fashion.
Yeah.
It definitely if you were to watch that match and not know who Dave Schultz is, you'd be like, oh, that guy's, he's not the other guys, and he's one of the best ever,
Right.
So it was definitely awesome.
It was, yep. It was good. It was of course, Dave is, he's such a great competitor. He's the kind of guy that just doesn't, he takes it personal, but he's gracious. And once he knew that I was, that I was better and wrestling better, he gave me my props and wished me the best. And he helped me in training camps. And he was never a kind of guy that was so upset or bitter that I made the team. He was there and he helped me whenever he could, so it was really great training camps after I made the team.
Yeah, just a great guy. You never hear anything disparaging about him. Great guy.
He's a great guy, but he's a killer, man. Dave will put some pain on you, and everyone says he's a great guy, but a lot of those people that say he's a great guy, he's a great guy. But a lot of those people didn't wrestle Dave. So they didn't feel. You talk to a lot of people that Dave just destroyed, and they're like, well, he's okay, but he almost broke my neck. But Dave was a killer, man. Dave he enjoyed putting pain on you. He enjoyed it. It was crazy. He really enjoyed hurting people.
So in '88, you went on to win the Olympic gold. You won an overtime 5-2. Explain that feeling when you get that takedown, you body lock them, take them down. Explain that feeling.
It's kind of hard to explain. It's really hard to explain. I mean, that's your dream come true. It was a dream that I had since I was 10 years old, like I was talking about the 72 team. That's when I really kind of understood what the Olympics was all about and what the ultimate goal of wrestling was, because it wasn't no professional sport, but that was the ultimate goal, is the gold medal. And so it was just a dream of mine since I was 10 years old. So then every year I would just keep working. I mean, I had the Olympic gold in the back of my mind. And so, once I won and I was on that medal stand, and of course my life kind of flashed back, before me, and just kind of all the hard work and all the ups and all the downs, all the losses, all the times that people said you couldn't do it. I remember when I first started trying to chase this dream and make the '88 team. People, and Dave was the guy. There were a lot of people like, man, you can't beat Dave. So there's a lot of people that didn't believe. I think the only only people that believed I could win was my family, and that took a while. And then and just my workout partners. You know, I think once they saw the work that I was putting in, and they saw me getting better on a daily basis, and like Joe Say was a head coach at Oklahoma State, Bruce Burnett was assistant coach, Mike Sheets, John. I mean, once they saw the work that I was putting in, then those guys knew that I could win. But of course, it's not over until it's over. You got to be in it to win it. And so after I made the team, my goal was beating that Russian. And Uriah was a guy, he was defending world champ, and I knew he was the one that I was going to have to beat to win. But it was just an amazing feeling. Your life just kind of flashes before you. It really does. And it's like you kind of have to pitch yourself. I mean, that whole night was just like I was in the twilight zone. I'm like, man, that really happened. That really just happened. Is it really over? And it's like, okay, it's just because, the realization that it's over and all that hard work and all the staying up late. I mean, it was anxiety in there too, just trying to make the team. And that's nerve wracking, because there was a time there where I wasn't making the progress that I thought I should be making, and I had to adjust some things. And so it was a tough grind.
Yeah, I feel like there's certain times like in my life, like, like I bought a house a few years ago that like, you're like, oh my God, like, I achieved that. I can only imagine training your entire life for this one dream, this one goal, right, and just like standing on that podium, just being like, oh my God, like I did it. It has to be just a second to none feeling. And like you said, like twilight zone of just like, is this real life? That's
right. And you can see my face on the podium, and you can kind of see that look on my eyes, like, man, I'm just thinking, I'm talking to God, I'm just thinking God, and like, man, it really happened. All my prayers came true, and of course to beat the people that I had to beat, to even get there, was just an amazing feat. And then also having John win at the same time. We're both from Oklahoma. I've been knowing him since he was 8 years old, and so kind of train together and go through it together. And have both gold medals coming back to Stillwater, Oklahoma was just an amazing moment.
So it sounded like, with you beating Dave to take his spot for 88, he helped coach you, corner you some. In 96, when, he was murdered by John DuPont, explain when your feelings, like, where were you? Do you remember like that day that when you found out?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll never forget that moment. Of course, it's it's one of the toughest things that I've ever experienced. I was in Arizona. We were training in Arizona. Sunkist kids at Art Martori had built a little, we bought a little apartment complex and kind of put us all up in one little apartment complex. And so we were in training camp, and it was a day off, matter of fact, and Melvin Douglas was there, and Melvin, when Melvin heard the news, and I just came back from the store, so I was in my car, and Melvin met me in the parking lot and said, "Hey," he said that he did it, man. He did it. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He said DuPont shot Dave. And so, but leading up to that, I mean, it was just probably one of the worst feelings in my life. But leading up to it, we kind of knew that it was happening. It was a possibility. I mean, he had shown a lot of different, behaviors that was questionable. And so I was one of the ones that were really trying to get USA Wrestling to get away from DuPont and disassociate from him. He had kicked Kevin off the team. Kevin Jackson was there and Stillwater trained with us, and Kevin was a Olympic champion, world champion, defending world champion in '95. And John DuPont kicks him off the team because he didn't want anything black on the ranch and on the farm anymore. And so, so that whole thing was just a disaster. And but we saw it coming. And I told those guys that if we continue, that he's gonna come back and slap us in the face. But so we kind of saw. So I was upset and hurt because I was trying to tell everyone that would listen that we need to disassociate from him. and it just kind of fell on deaf ears just because I think that the money, the money that he was giving. And at that point in time, we, as an organization, we needed the money, we needed the support, and DuPont came in during that time where we needed it, and they just didn't want to give up that money. And so it was a tough thing, man. It was a tough thing, but that people look back on, and there was a lot of people that were hurt through it. And even though he was a tough competitor, my last conversation with Dave was on a conference call in November, and we were talking about DuPont, and that was the I don't know if you watched that movie Foxcatcher, and we talk about it. And when he said move the meeting went off the tracks, and it was probably because of me, because I was really adamant about trying to disassociate from him, and Dave was, Dave defending him to the end, and so man, Dave, that was our last conversation, matter of fact, in November on that conference call, and Dave was trying to protect him, and I'm like, Dave, it doesn't have anything to do with whether I like the guy or not. He's dangerous, and so that's just. And then that was in November. And then January is when he got shot. And so I have a lot of feelings about it, and a lot of things that happened that shouldn't have happened. And but it was one of the worst days in our lives.
Yeah, it's definitely it's one of those stories that almost doesn't seem real. It's such an insane story.
Yeah.
It's so tragic. You know what I mean? Because like you said, he was a guy that was like defending him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's like almost the craziest part of someone that's backing you, and then that's crazy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've talked to, of course, Nancy and I are good friends, and we talk, and and that was, but she said one of the first things she said is, "Ken, you're right. You're right. We should have listened to a lot of people, but Dave thought we could get through the Olympics, and then after that we'd probably make a decision, but." He just didn't quite see. He didn't see it, right? He just didn't see him as a danger, So it was a tough thing.
Definitely, and that was in '96. The Olympics was in '96.
Yep.
There's a few guys coming from that camp to Foxcatcher, and like Kurt Angle's one of those guys.
Yep.
He ended up leaving after the whole thing, obviously.
Yep.
What was the atmosphere like for the wrestling team in '96 with like that? Not being in the recent past, you know what I mean?
It was tough, it was a tough time for everyone. And I think it was tougher on me just because it all kind of came down on me a little bit more than anyone else, just because I was competing with Dave, and Dave and I would have had to wrestle to make that team. And Dave, because after the '92 Olympics, I'd hurt my elbow, 8 days before the tournament started in '92. So after that tournament, I just wanted some time off. I moved out of Stillwater. I got married, and so I really got away from the sport. And I didn't really come back until '96 to make the team. Or in '95, I didn't wrestle in '95, but I came back in '96. And so, a lot of things that were happening that I wasn't, around. A lot of, a lot of support and sponsorship that went around. And so it was a little different. But after that happened, of course, every interview came back to that. Every interview that even after I made the team, every interview before and after I made the team came back to Dave Schultz of DuPont. So it was really, it was distracting. It definitely took a toll on me. I was hurt. I felt betrayed. So there was a lot of things that I was dealing with during that time from that. And of course, then people were like, because Dave was on the team from 93, 94, 95, Dave was on the team because I didn't wrestle.
Sure.
And then, so everyone was like, pumping Dave, and reporters were like asking me, well, so you came back and you took Dave's place. Like, I didn't take Dave's place. I made the team. We'd had to wrestle, but I didn't take Dave's place. So they were just misinformed. They didn't know the process. And so, but it always came back to that. They would start the interview with talking about, well, you made the team, congratulations. Then it always come back to DuPont and Dave. So it was a tough deal. It was a tough deal. Really was.
Yeah, I could see that. It just weighs heavy, and it would just be such a horrible situation for everybody involved. And
definitely
tough.
It was tough.
So 96 after the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
In 97, you had your first and only MMA fight.
Yeah,
But a part of your 92 and 96 Olympic team was Mark Coleman, UFC Hall of Famer.
yep.
Um,
Mark Well, yep, teammate.
did you guys like talk about like, potentially doing this, or is this just something that it just kind of, because
Not at all. I mean,
and we'll get
I
into that in a little
really,
bit, but you got into like the
yeah,
MMA community as you got older.
yeah, I was a fan, and I was, after '96, I mean, I was pretty much done competing, and that's kind of why I retired. I was done competing. I didn't want to train that hard anymore. I had a kid and had a family. So I wanted to get into. I was in business. I owned a Subway. I owned a coffee shop, living it. So I was in business and just doing my thing. And but I was a fan of the sport and how it all kind of came about. An event. There was a fight in Tulsa one weekend, and so I went to the fight. The guy invited me. I went to the fight. Battle K, I think Battle K was the name of the organization. So I went to the fight as a guest, and so the promoter, introduced me, before the fights, just as a local celebrity. It was in Tulsa, and so after the fight, I think like he got my number. He called me like a week later, say, "Hey, I'm doing this fight, da da da, and a couple months, and would love to have you. Have you ever thought about fighting?" I'm like, nah, I'm done competing, and really, I'm a fan of the sport, I love the game, but I'm just not interested, right? And so he kind of kept badgering me, said, "Well, what would it take? What would it take?" And so I just threw out like this crazy number. I'm like, this is 1998. I'm like, I'll do it for 50 grand, right? Just to try to get rid of the guy. He said, "Oh no, we can't do that. I can't do that. They're paying like 5 and 5, 5 to win, 5 to show and 5 to win. So they're paying about 10 grand." And so he said, "No, we can't do that." And I said, "Okay, well, all right. Well, you asked me, and so I told you." And so he said, okay. He said he hung up, and so I thought I was rid of the guy. He calls me back like 3 weeks, about 3 days later. It's like, "Okay, we'll do it." And so I had already put myself out there and told him, "Okay, if you pay me 50 grand, I'll do it." Right. And so I'm looking at my wife like he was like, and I'm like, okay. And so I just made the decision to do it. Right. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Because I hadn't trained it. I hadn't trained MMA. And I really didn't train for the fight. I didn't train any stand-up. I didn't train any submission. I trained a little bit in the guard, working in the guard, because that's a little different position,
Sure.
doing jiu-jitsu and stuff. So I kind of trained and kind of learned how to kind of get out of stuff and how to control position, right? But mostly I just kind of wrestled and try to get in some shape. And I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I really did.
Now, do you think if like with how big MMA is today, if your career was wrapping up, or maybe like after 92, if the opportunity was kind of more advantageous to
Absolutely.
you, you
Full
think?
time. Full time.
Awesome.
I'd have been a UFC champion.
I'm sure you would have been.
I'd have fought full time, I mean, Kevin and I kind of talked about it. Kevin actually did go fight. He fought more, and I was kind of through competing. But yeah, definitely after '92, if UFC was like it is today, I'd have signed up and I'd have been fighting full time for sure. Absolutely. I love the game. I love it. I love the sport. I think it's getting better. It's getting bigger. It's not going anywhere. I can't believe they're fighting this weekend.
No.
I can't believe that. But yeah, I definitely would have been full time for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, I love it. And like, I'm always, I'll follow wrestling. And there's some of those guys like, that I'm like, oh man, I hope they get into it. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh yeah.
it's such a
Oh yeah.
brutal sport. Like, I'd love it. Like, MMA is one of my absolute, it's probably like my second favorite sport behind like
Yeah.
football.
Right. Right.
I
Right.
just,
And
I
I
love
would have,
the beauty of it.
and I knew though, I saw the trend, and I knew that once wrestlers got into the sport, this was in late '98. I knew once wrestlers got a hold of it that they would dominate.
Oh,
Just
sure.
because wrestling is a martial art, and I knew this. This is one of the reasons I stayed in wrestling as a kid. I learned right away that wrestling was a martial art. It protected me on the playgrounds. It protected me from bullies. I mean, I was bully-proof growing up, and I was a bully killer growing up, just because of my skill set. So I knew it was a martial art, and so once I knew that this game was gonna blow up and get bigger, I knew wrestling would dominate. And I knew that I would be involved at some point. At some point in the future, I didn't know it would be through coaching or promoting. I knew that I would be involved in the sport, and so it kind of led me to that point later on.
Yeah, and so you ended up you were the head wrestling coach for
Yep.
Blackzilians.
Yep.
Did you just train with Johnny Hendricks, like help him with wrestling, or did you work for Team Takedown?
That was after the Blackzilians. And so when I took the job at Blackzilians in 2013, it was after the 2012 Olympics, and then they came after me, and they offered me just a great package in Florida, and it was a great team. It was really a great
Oh,
experience. I wouldn't change it. It was a great experience. It didn't work out, but it was a great experience. I got to meet some great people, and me and Vitor are still good friends, and a lot of those guys I'm still good friends with, But it was a great experience. It really was. But Johnny, then when I left Florida, then they hired me in Texas with Team Takedown with Hendricks, and so yeah, and I was in the room with him every day. Wrestle him. I'd watch his training and yeah. So that 2 years I was in Texas, I worked with Johnny.
Do you care to elaborate on what happened with Blackzilians?
Well, with me, it was just the ownership. The guy that was the
Glenn Robinson
owner, Glenn Robinson. We kind of didn't see eye to eye at the end, and I think some things happened. And I think in the MMA world, sometimes in those teams like that, they kind of get crossed. They get some jealousy and some coaches, and so I think bottom line is he didn't come through on a couple of things that he said he would. Some things that he wasn't a man of his word at the end of the day for me, and so it just didn't work out. And so I just wasn't going to stay there and not work under the circumstances that I needed to work under. So he fired me, and so that was that really.
And it's one of those things where you look at the situation now, and Glenn Robinson passed away, but him and Henry Hooft had a split. He split it seemed like I don't know the guy, and I'm not speaking ill upon the guy, but it seemed like he was kind of a semi-difficult person to work with.
Yeah, I think in that situation, I think guys, man, sometimes they just think when they're around the game, I think they think they know the game more than they really do, and it's like, man, just do what you just pay the bills, right? Just help people, help the kids get better. But it's a lot of egos involved. I remember Overeem was there. I coached him, and he didn't even want to. I had to go train with Overeem because he didn't want to be around the team because he had a riff with some of the Brazilian guys, and so he couldn't train during our normal hours. I would work out. I would train guys in the morning. Then I would train in the afternoon, and then I would have to come back with him at like 10 o'clock at night. We wouldn't get out of the gym till 1 o'clock in the morning because that's the only time he could train, right? And so Robinson and they kind of had a riff, but he had to train at his own times. That was kind of a crazy thing, and so I did that for a couple of his camps, but that was an interesting deal. But yeah, so it just kind of, it was. It was a great team. I tell you, it was a great experience. And man, at the time, I had the chance to work with Eddie Alvarez and Rashad and Anthony, and Michael Johnson was there, and
Kamaru Usman was young there, wasn't he?
Usman was there. He was trained. He was just kind of getting his feet wet. He wasn't in the UFC, but he was getting his feet wet. He was starting to learn and get better. And it was just a great team. It was a great team for a while, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. It was one when they were first starting out, man. They were one of the best.
Gilbert, which is now Gilbert is he's matter of fact he's ready to fight
Tyron Woodley.
Yep. And so Gilbert was there. And he was a young kid there, and
Jiu-jitsu.
Yep. I wrestled a lot with him, and we learned a lot from him. But I taught him a lot about wrestling, and spent a lot of time with Vitor. And so it was really a great experience. It really was. Good to see those guys being successful now, man, because they were young and up and coming, man. So it's good to see them, being successful now.
Just out of curiosity, again, this isn't something I plan on asking, but when you get on the mat with somebody like a Gilbert Burns, who's we're not talking about he's good at jiu-jitsu, we're talking about world champion.
Yeah, no, he's good.
How does that feel? Because I've done jiu-jitsu, I've done a few tournaments and whatnot, but when I would get on the mat with a high level wrestler. Yeah. It's so weird for jiu-jitsu because they suck away all of your space. You have no room to work. So I was just curious, with you being one of the greatest wrestlers ever, and Gilbert Burns, one of the great jiu-jitsu guys. How was that?
It was good, man. I could hold my own. I could hold my own. I think just because of my my athleticism, my strength, just my mastery of the human body, right?
Sure.
I mean, I can kind of feel, and so I could hold my own. I mean, you talk to those guys today, and they'll tell you, I'd wrestle them, and they couldn't, I couldn't get submitted too often. I mean, Gilbert he was slick, man. He was great. I could tell that I really had to pay attention, with him, or he'd get me an arm bar or something, But I spent a lot of time with those guys and wrestling around with them, and so I kind of learned a lot too, with wrestling with him and wrestling with Vitor. And I learned a lot, and but I could handle my own in that situation.
I bet.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun.
Is that something that, and we're going to talk about what you're doing currently, but is that something maybe in the future that you would get back into, like an MMA kind of community?
Yeah, I'll never close that door. I'll never. I got guys all the time that are calling me and wanting me to work with them. I do a little work on. I teach a class at this Elevate gym here in Durham. Now we haven't been doing it now, but every Wednesday I was going teaching wrestling to that camp. I've got a guy that's training now that worked with Alpha Male, with Uriah and those guys, Alex Munoz.
Oh, okay.
So Alex Munoz I coached him in high school in Texas, and so we go way back. He was just a sophomore in high school. I coached him all through high school in wrestling, and been a national champion, and he was at Oklahoma State for a couple of years, and so we go way back. And so now I've cornered him in his last two fights, and he just did the one deal in Hawaii, in Dana White's what's his program he does? It's like
Dana White, like
looking for a fight contender. It was looking for a fight series thing he does. Okay. And so I was with Xander for that fight. He won this fight, and so he got a contract with UFC, and so he's in the UFC right now. And so he wants me to be in. Yeah, when he fights, I'm in his corner, and so I'll go. I went out and worked with him and Alpha Male for about a week for one of his fights. So I get to spend some time with Uriah. Got to know him pretty good, and so we're friends now.
Cody Garbrandt, there's another.
Yep, Cody was there. Yep, he was there, and they got a great program out there. There's some great fighters, man. Really, he has a great system. Really does.
Absolutely. So currently, you are the head wrestling coach at the University of North Carolina.
RTC program. Yep.
So your son wrestles, for you. You have two sons. One's, like you said, at Princeton. One you're coaching. Like, how cool is that to you're done with your competitive as far as individually, portion of your career. So how cool is it to my kid is, living out his dream.
Yeah.
I'm getting to be there every single day when he's grinding.
Yeah, it's amazing, man. It really is amazing. I thank God every day for it. I don't take it for granted. It's something that when I first got them in the sport as kids, we kind of just talked about it. We kind of just built them up. And the one thing that I didn't want them to be is I didn't want them to get to college and be burnt out. Sure. And so there's a lot of things that I kind of held back, and I didn't take them to every tournament. I wasn't training them 24 hours a day, and I just wasn't going to do that. I wanted them to go through the sport, learn it, take some losses and kind of learn their way through the sport. And so, but we always wanted them to make their own decisions. If they wanted to wrestle, wanted to continue, make it be their decision. I just wanted to introduce them and show them the way, and let them take off. And so now they're in a position now to where they're getting a great education, and they're living their dreams. And it's cool to watch them. And it's even cooler when UNC wrestles Princeton, and so their wrestling is a little nerve-wracking, of course, for me and my wife to watch it. But it's when I look back on it, man, it's just I'm just kind of smiling all the way. And but it's a great feeling, man. It really is fun to watch them grow. And now they're in the point now to where they're good enough to do whatever they want to do in the sport.
Sure.
They know the sport. They're good enough. Now it's just about the work and the dedication. If they want to be national champs, I think they're good enough to be. If they want to be Olympic champs, I think they're good. They're in position to where they can develop.
Sure.
If they have that goal and their dream. So we'll see where they go. And but no, it's it's a blast watching them compete, man. And watch them go through the ups and downs. This is just the game. They win some, they lose some, of course. And but I'm just proud of them. I'm proud of they're training hard, and they're working hard and they're getting a great education.
Nah, absolutely not. I just imagine it's a really cool experience. Could we
really
potentially see one of the Monday boys fight?
I don't know about fighting. I thought you were getting ready to ask where they're going to be able to wrestle each other, and so people ask it because they're really close.
That'd be real nerve-wracking.
As a matter of fact, I think Quincy maybe he's Kennedy about right now, but because the season before last, they were both at 157 at the beginning of the season, and we had them on the duel on the schedule. We had Princeton on the schedule, and so we're like, man, you're gonna let those guys wrestle? You're gonna let them wrestle? And so Kenny was cutting. He was getting bigger. So that 57 cut was a lot for him, and so he decided to go to 165, which I was happy he did, because I didn't want to see those guys wrestle. I don't mind watching them wrestle in the workout room. I don't mind watching them practice, but out on the mat, I don't want to see that. So I'm glad they're different weight classes now.
I bet. I'm going to get you on this. So normally I ask rapid fire questions at the end of the show, but I'm not going to do rapid fire questions. I have one question for you. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
If I took prime Kenny Monday and he went against Jordan Burroughs, who wins?
Kenny Monday, of course.
There we go.
He knows that.
No, I was talking to a buddy of mine, and we were talking about Burroughs versus you. And I was like,
I love Jordan, man. He's one of the greatest wrestlers, one of the greatest men that I've come to know. He's a good friend. I love him to death. Love his family, and a lot of respect for him, man.
Absolutely.
Sure. But I definitely would get him.
Jordan, if
of
you
course, we go back and forth to that. We go back and forth.
So I want to appreciate you for coming on the show. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And I said at the intro that if they didn't hit the like and the subscribe button, and they don't follow us both, that you're going to come to their door and beat them up. So.
All right. Absolutely. Here's my son, Quincy. Come say hi. Say hi.
How's it going?
Hey, what's going on, man?
What's up?
Ask him who. He can't get his dad yet. Can you get your dad yet? Huh?
Give me another year. I'll get him by then.
I was looking it up, and you're 58 years old, and I'm like, good God, Monday at 58 could rip off both my arms and beat me to death with them.
I can still roll. I can still roll a little bit.
Thanks for tuning in, guys, and I will see you.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. God bless.